Hi, I am Dr. Julie Brown, Carrick trained concussion doctor and board certified chiropractic neurologist. Today I want to talk about a study that I found, but first let me tell you a study, what happened prior to this study appearing in my life. A few Christmases ago, my mom was down visiting us and she was talking to her sister, my aunt, on the phone who was in another state who she's not been around. Perfectly healthy on the phone. The call, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. By the time she hung up, my mom was full blown sick after talking to my aunt who was sick on the other side. So clearly she did not get sick from an actual infection. But I thought it so strange that within 20 minutes, my mom was full blown sick, sinusy, stuffed up. It lasted for a few days. Who knows? She could have gotten something somewhere else, but she had been fine and denied being around anyone sick that she had known. And overall, she is pretty darn healthy. And 20 minutes is not enough time for someone to be full blown sick. Anyway, long story long, I have some Facebook groups that I follow. Somebody shared this paper, and I was like, oh, that sounds like the question I had in my head regarding how could my mom have gotten sick like that? So this paper is called Neural Anticipation of Virtual Infection Triggers an Immune Response. So this is more about vision. My mom did not see her aunt. She heard her aunt. So my guess is there has to be some similar pathways. I haven't found a paper to match that. Honestly, I'm not even sure what words to search to find a paper. But I'd be curious to see if this would happen with hearing as well. So in here, they state, in primates, a mechanism that might be functional to protect contact with potential harm has been described within a network of frontoparietal neurons, which integrate tactile stimuli on the body with external sensory information close to the body. That is the peripersonal space system. So they call it the PPS, which I'll refer to from here on out. So the first part they did, they had people put on these virtual reality goggles, and they got a baseline for it, and they had to touch their face. There was a direction to touch their face. So they tested it with nothing. Then they put these images up, and the three cohorts they had for the face were neutral, sick, and fear. Okay, and they had them see these faces at 5 different distances, and they would measure how long the reaction time was to touch their face. So from the baseline to seeing these faces, the only one that changed was in the sick face, and it got faster. So they responded faster, like their system is amped up. There's a threat coming in, was kind of the idea with that. And that was found with the sick group. Then they also, let's see here, they did an fMRI. So they put the person in the brain, and they were able to look at the functionality, what was connecting based on the images that they were seeing. And what they found was, let me see here, it changes on this paper. With a functional MRI, they found that this PPS overlapped with parts of the salient network. So salience is kind of how these different groups of neurons fire and talk to each other. You have different default mode, you have different networks. So this went along with the salient one. And it also fired up, it also went to parts of the hypothalamus, the lateral hypothalamus, which is related to the immune response. And I do this for my arm for blood draw, but it's related to the immune response. So what they also did is they did a blood draw. So these people all had their blood drawn after seeing this virtual reality. And they also compared their blood to a person who had gotten a flu vaccine, which would initiate an immune response in the blood. And what they found is that the immune response based on the ILC was the same for the sick group, seeing it at the far distance, that had the biggest trigger to people at the far distance, and to the vaccine group, but not the neutral or the angry group. So, and the neutral natural killer cells didn't really make a difference in that. But I thought that to be interesting, that you literally had an immune response to what you were seeing. So when you see someone who's sick and you're like, oh, stay away from me, you're lighting up those pathways, and you are probably stimulating an immune response to what you think is a threat. Now, that being said, I feel like there's a way to flip this, because I see people in my office when they're sick. I'm not worried about it. I clean things, and I'm slower, so I don't have a lot of people coming in and out. But I don't get sick when I see them. I'm fine. I know my immune system's okay. But at other times, if I'm around someone more often and I hear them being sick and that sound almost gets annoying to me, that's how I describe it, I start to think it's in my head. I think I'm annoyed because even when I'm sick, I'm annoyed when my throat is stuffed up or my nose is stuffed up or I'm coughing or that type of thing. But I feel that annoyance and I swear it triggers an immune response. And this gives me a little validation in what I was feeling or observing, to say it differently. I would argue maybe if you're around sick people more often and you don't have a good brain function, your frontal lobe is not firing up for you to override and be like, oh, they're sick, I'm good. I think that could create an issue. I think maybe trying some gratitude and be like, oh, I feel so good, or paying attention to everything that's working on you. I can breathe easy. My throat doesn't hurt. I'm not coughing. I'm doing all these things. And picturing yourself so that you activate that prefrontal cortex that calms down some of this firing that was found in this paper. You can go back and look at those areas. I wonder what it looks like going the other way. If we had someone who was sick, maybe they could run a study. Have somebody who's sick, measure that blood work, measure their brain, have them look at someone who's healthy and see if that starts calming things down and different parts of the brain fire. I don't know. Anyway, I thought it was interesting. You can get sick without actually getting a virus. If you see it on the news over and over and over, maybe you start to think, oh, that little, I'm warm, that must be a fever. These are things that are put into your mind. So it's one way to maybe, I don't know, take control of your health. Anyway, if you have any comments on this, I'd love to hear it. And again, I will put the paper in the links below, and we'll see you next time.